With the European Championship only a few days away, making accurate predictions is somewhat feasible, even though some are bound to be horribly wrong. Despite this, I will do my best to predict how UEFA Euro 2020 will unfold. After I am done analyzing the groups and predicting the order teams will finish in, I'm gonna show predictions for the knockout stage as well. But don't skip to that part of the video without hearing my analysis of the groups. I cannot stress that enough. Otherwise, some of the predictions might seem crazy, even crazier than they already are, but I digress. Predictions in general are heavily opinionated, so you will likely not agree with all of them. You might even oppose some of these predictions so much that they will offend you on a deeply personal level. But instead of disliking the video and commenting that I should end my life or something, I suggest you post your own predictions in the comment section. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's start with Group A. On June 11th, Italy and Turkey will kick off the European Championship in Rome. Those two are accompanied by Switzerland and Wales, making the group highly competitive. Regardless, Italy is the undisputed favorite. They won a difficult Nations League A group and possess the strongest squad out of these four teams. If this wasn't enough, the Azzurri will also have home advantage in all their group matches. Stadio Olimpico in Rome will only allow 25% of its normal capacity, but around 18,000 spectators should still provide sufficient support, even though not all of them will be Italian. Determining the runner-up is a trickier task. Switzerland did great to obtain 6 points in a Nations League group containing Spain, Germany and Ukraine, but their only win was awarded to them. Either way, 3 draws in 4 matches against Spain and Germany is impressive. Their start to World Cup qualifying was also solid, despite their uncharacteristically underwhelming 1-0 win against Lithuania. Turkey comes off the back of a phenomenal start to World Cup qualifying, but suffered greatly from inconsistency in Nations League B. But that could be attributed to Şenol Güneş being fresh in charge and experimenting with tactics, learning his best team. Because it seems things are finally starting to click for the Turks, highlighted by their phenomenal wins against the Netherlands and Norway. Also, Güneş was the mastermind behind Turkey's 3rd place finish at the 2002 World Cup. The pedigree and experience of being the manager behind Turkey's best ever side cannot be underestimated. Recency bias could be at play here, but Turkey might very well be emerging as a footballing power. The Olympic Stadium in Baku will allow 50% of its normal capacity, around 34,000 spectators. The bond between Azerbaijan and Turkey is close. Most Azeris would be unofficial Turks for the duration of the Euros. In other words, Turkey will basically enjoy home advantage in their matches against Wales and Switzerland. Turkey's recent success, superb manager and pseudo-home advantage gives them a slight edge over their main runner-up contender Switzerland, and also Wales. Ryan Giggs has managed Wales since 2018 and can thus be held more accountable for Wales's results in the Nations League, which he probably doesn't mind since the Dragons had a successful campaign, winning their group undefeated, but a cause for concern is unveiled upon closer inspection. Several 1-0 wins against Finland, Bulgaria and the Republic of Ireland. Very narrow wins with late goals against teams that are all weaker than Italy, Turkey and Switzerland. And a 0-0 draw against a historically struggling Irish side. This persisted in World Cup qualifying, where they obtained a 1-0 win against the Czech Republic, also with a late goal, albeit the Czech side that held Belgium to a draw. The Czech Republic is notably stronger than the likes of Ireland, but Wales's triumph over them is too anecdotal for any major conclusions to be reached. The point is that Wales's recent success can largely be attributed to having the margins on their side, and that it's only a matter of time before they don't manage a clean sheet or don't score that crucial late goal. This risk increases the tougher the opposition is. All Group A teams are stronger than those Wales defeated in the Nations League. Wales is a good team, but this group is slightly too competitive for them to advance to the knockout phase. I know 3-3 might seem a bit crazy, but do keep in mind that these insane results do unexpectedly happen at tournaments. For example, who would have been able to predict the 3-3 between Portugal and Hungary at Euro 2016? Belgium comfortably defeated Russia home and away in Euro qualifying, before COVID-19 forced matches to be played in empty stadiums. In the Nations League, the Red Devils replicated that feat against Denmark, without spectators too. Regardless, it's unlikely home fans would have given Denmark the 3 goals necessary to win. Debutants Finland are arguably on par with Russia, but still weaker than Denmark, meaning Belgium should beat them without too much hassle, despite Finland's proximity to the St. Petersburg venue and presumably greater support from the stands. Belgium are currently one of the best teams in the world and possesses an exciting blend of youngsters and veterans. Their motivation to win their first major tournament will be through the roof. Denmark did well to get 10 points in their Nations League A group, going undefeated against England over 2 fixtures. Their start to World Cup qualifying is arguably still better, even though the opposition is comparatively easy. 14 goals in 3 matches, maintaining a clean sheet every time, one of which was a 4-0 demolition away against Austria, with all goals scored in the second half. Additionally, their squad consists of several great players representing the likes of Leicester, Milan, Chelsea, Dortmund, Inter, and so on. They will also enjoy home advantage in all of their group matches. Around 18,000 to 13,000 spectators, over half being Danes, will likely feel like a lot after being accustomed to empty stadiums. Russia did well to reach the quarterfinals of the 2018 World Cup, but Denmark have undoubtedly surpassed them, enjoying greater success in the Nations League and World Cup qualifying. Russia and Finland both played in Nations League B, obtaining 8 and 12 points respectively. In Russia's defense, their group was tougher, but this time they will enjoy home advantage in 2 of their matches, including the one against Finland. Despite Russia's lackluster Nations League campaign, they remained undefeated at home, even without fans, so it would not be unreasonable to consider them slight favorites over the Finns in front of 34,000 spectators, mostly Russians, despite the venue's close proximity to Finland. Then again, Finland did win 2 away matches in the Nations League, albeit against historically struggling Irish and Bulgarian sides. They also drew 1-1 away against Ukraine in World Cup qualifying, but that was because of a last-minute penalty. However, the Finns have another ace up their sleeve: the motivation and passion that playing in your maiden tournament brings. While this motivation alone is unlikely to grant Finland an away win against Russia, it can certainly be enough to manage a draw. And since they will both likely lose to Belgium and Denmark, this draw will presumably spell the end for Russia's and Finland's tournament. Despite their recent struggles under Frank de Boer and missing Virgil van Dijk, the Netherlands are the presumptive group winners. Their squad, although their weakest in years, is still the best in their group. Oranje obtained 11 points in their Nations League A group, losing just 1 match against Italy. The only other truly poor result was their 0-0 away against Bosnia and Herzegovina. Regardless, the Dutch performed better in the Nations League than any Group C team. Also, they will enjoy home advantage in all group matches. A cause for concern is their 4-2 debacle against Turkey, but it was a good Turkish side, and is too anecdotal to remove Oranje's status as group favorites. Likewise, the absence of Van Dijk should not be overestimated, even though it would be a blessing for any team to have him. Football is a team sport though. Ukraine obtained 6 points in their Nations League A group, but were relegated under the most unfortunate of circumstances, forced to forfeit their away match against Switzerland due to a COVID-19 outbreak in their squad. Ukraine could have very well remained in League A had it not been for that. The Yellow and Blue also performed great in Euro qualifying, winning their group undefeated and beating Portugal. However, they have failed to replicate the success in World Cup qualifying, failing to win a single match out of 3. Fortunately for Ukraine, Austria has been worse. Despite winning their Nations League B group, the Austrians' start to World Cup qualifying has been poor, drawing 2-2 against Scotland, but losing 4-0 to Denmark, and winning 3-1 against the Faroe Islands, but who cares? ELO ratings further support the thesis that Ukraine is a bit better than Austria. Ukraine will be a dark horse for many, and it will be interesting to see how far they can go. Andrei Shevchenko has done a superb job, making Ukraine dream again, if they ever did. Austria defeated North Macedonia home and away in Euro qualifying, but that was a year and a half ago, and it's obvious North Macedonia has improved since then, highlighted by their sensational win against Germany. Despite their recent struggles, Austria should be favored to finish above the Balkan side. North Macedonia's overall results indicate that their win against Germany was a fluke, although deserved. Their only other convincing win in these last 9 months was against Liechtenstein and historically struggling Latvia. There are also marginal wins against Estonia, Georgia, Kosovo, Armenia and Israel, but they are all weaker sides than Austria. As debutants, North Macedonia's motivation will be through the roof, but that alone is not enough to grant them a successful tournament. Even if North Macedonia defy the odds and win a match, goal difference will likely spell the end of the tournament. I know 1-1 against North Macedonia would be a massive failure for Ukraine, and I do favor Ukraine over them by a pretty big margin. But these types of unexpected and arguably undeserved draws do happen, and I want to try predicting those as well. And let's not forget that Ukraine dropped points against Kazakhstan in World Cup qualifying, and North Macedonia beat Germany. Ukraine will still be favorites, but the point is that this draw could happen, and my gut is saying it will. Croatia ended England's run at the 2018 World Cup, but the Three Lions have now surpassed them. England marginally defeated Croatia at Wembley in the 2018-19 Nations League, and since then the Balkan side has gotten worse, losing to Slovenia and scraping past Cyprus 1-0 in World Cup qualifying, for example. This means England are likely to convincingly repeat that victory at the Euros. Despite a relatively disappointing Nations League campaign, England's performance was the best out of any Group D team. Their squad is also the strongest in the group, and home advantage in all matches further cements England's status as group favourites. At least 22,000 fans at Wembley should provide ample support for England. England should beat Scotland at Wembley, but the Scots can compete with both the Czech Republic and Croatia, especially in Glasgow. Scotland defeated the Czechs home and away in the Nations League, but that doesn't tell the whole story. In the first fixture in Prague, the Czechs were forced to use what essentially was their C team after a COVID-19 outbreak plagued their squad. That, along with a Ryan Christie penalty, assured Scottish victory. However, even after the Czechs were back to almost full force, Scotland still reigned supreme at Hampden Park, winning with their only shot on target. Meanwhile, the Czechs had 6. But stats like that are very common when teams obtain an early lead as Scotland did, so it's not to say that the Czechs were better or that Scotland's triumph was undeserved. Additionally, the Scots will be beyond motivated playing in their first major tournament since 1998 in front of home fans. Though not at full capacity, around 12,000 fans, mostly Scots, at Hampden Park should give them the boost they need. Scotland should manage at least a draw against the Czechs, if not win. The Czechs are a decent away side, but this decency will likely only extend to granting them a draw against Scotland at best, not win. The Czech Republic is a rising side with a bright future, but they need a little more time and are unlucky to play 2 away matches in this tournament. Something that bodes well for Scotland is Croatia's poor away record, failing to win an away match since September 2019, a duration likely inflated by facing strong teams like Portugal, France and Sweden, but still not to be ignored since they also failed to beat Wales, Azerbaijan and Hungary in Euro qualifying away, not to mention their recent loss to Slovenia in World Cup qualifying. Coincidentally, September 2019 was also when Scotland suffered their most recent home defeat, 4-0 against Belgium. Quite an impressive streak. Also, Croatia has never beaten Scotland over their 4 competitive fixtures. Most patterns break at some point though, and Croatia can definitely win against them, but it's still worth noting. Scotland's rise in combination with Croatia's apparent decline, home advantage, and the motivation of finally playing in a major tournament again is enough to favour Scotland as the group runner-up by the smallest possible margin. We all remember Croatia's Cinderella story at the 2018 World Cup, but that golden generation has started declining. It's difficult to compare Croatia's and the Czech Republic's Nations League performances since they played in different divisions. Croatia barely stayed in League A, courtesy of a Marcus Danielsson own goal, their sole win being at home against Sweden. The Czech Republic won their Nations League B group comfortably, despite losing to Scotland. The Czechs obtained 2 fewer points than Croatia in their opening 3 matches in World Cup qualifying, but the former faced tougher opposition. Regardless, the difference between their performances, if it even exists, is too minuscule to base conclusions on. We have to look elsewhere to distinguish them. One such place is ELO ratings, where Croatia and the Czech Republic are ranked 18th and 27th respectively. However, this small difference in combination with the recent results means they are basically evenly matched. Even though Croatia of course can win on the day, or the Czech Republic for that matter. Despite Croatia's seemingly superior squad, they are about on the same level as the Czechs. It feels odd to disregard a team that played in a World Cup final less than 3 years ago in this fashion, but paradigms can change rapidly in football. Despite their shaky start to World Cup qualifying where they dropped points against Greece and scraped past Georgia, Spain is the big favourite to win this group. On top of winning their Nations League group and having the group's strongest squad, La Roja will also have home advantage in all matches. La Cartuja in Seville will be at 30% capacity, boasting 18,000 spectators, mostly Spaniards. That should provide ample support to boost the players. While finishing in first place isn't a guarantee, it's certainly the most likely outcome for Spain. Slovakia will probably finish in last place, just as they did in their Nations League B group. Also, their start to World Cup qualifying has been dreadful, despite a 2-1 win against Russia. They drew with Malta after being 2-0 down and failed to break down Cyprus. Slovakia does have a couple of good players, but that won't be enough to take them past the group stage of the Euros. Poland obtained 4 more points than Sweden in the Nations League, but that could be attributed to the white and red group being a bit easier. Robert Lewandowski is arguably the best striker in the world, but that doesn't assure success in a team sport. Poland flopped at the 2018 World Cup despite people having reasonably high hopes of them. The opposite was true for Sweden, who reached the quarterfinals for the first time since 1994. Additionally, their start to World Cup qualifying are too even for any conclusions to be reached, further reflected in their ELO ratings. None of these factors might matter at the Euros, but the point is that there are fair cases for both Sweden and Poland to finish as runners-ups of this group. They're basically indistinguishable, even though either of the two can win on the day. Maybe I'm a little too hard on Slovakia, but I genuinely feel like they're an awful side at the moment. Like, truly awful. Sorry. Containing hosts Hungary and Germany, along with world champions France and European champions Portugal, Group F has been labeled the group of death for a reason. Hungary impressively won their Nations League B group, but that is of little significance in a Euro group with teams who all performed well, or at least decently, in League A. However, the Magyars have an ace up their sleeve in being the only Euro 2020 team with full stadium capacity. As a result, 67,000 spectators will share them on at the Puskás Arena. Interestingly enough, a study conducted by the Institute of Labor Economics found that the absence of football fans did not negatively affect home advantage. In other words, Hungary's performance might not improve despite their packed stadiums. But there are a few reasons why this study should be taken with a grain of salt in this context. For one, the study was conducted all the way back in August and could thus potentially be outdated. Secondly, while the study is indicative of empty stadiums not negatively affecting home advantage, that doesn't necessarily have to mean home teams won't get a boost of a big home crowd after having been accustomed to playing in empty stadiums for several months. France's away record is impeccable, having won their 8 most recent matches abroad. This includes wins against Sweden, Croatia and Portugal. Speaking of whom, Portugal's away record is a little shakier, recently dropping a 2-0 lead to draw against Serbia. But it's worth noting that a last-minute winner by Cristiano Ronaldo was wrongfully disallowed, not to mention that one fixture is anecdotal. The Portuguese also reigned supreme against Sweden and Croatia in the Nations League. Hungary's stadium capacity makes them unpredictable. It's possible they get a shock win against France or Portugal in Budapest, but it's unlikely. What's more probable is that Hungary's home advantage merely mitigates the margin with which France and Portugal beat them. And since Germany's loss to North Macedonia likely was a fluke, Hungary's final group match in Munich against Germany will likely spell the end of Hungary's tournament. The French have a splendid away record, which, combined with Germany's recent struggles, should grant France a win against Germany, even in Munich. Not to mention that France is one of, if not the best team in the world. The same logic is applicable when it comes to France's match against Hungary in Budapest, but by an even greater margin. Portugal and France are arguably evenly matched, despite the latter's narrow Nations League win in Lisbon. But France's slightly better consistency will likely grant them a higher point tally than Portugal. Portugal should be favoured to beat Hungary, even though the task will be hard. Regardless, this is one of the strongest Portuguese sides of all time. Additionally, citing their superior Nations League campaign and start to World Cup qualifying, Portugal would be marginal favourites away against Germany. A German draw or win is certainly within the realm of possibility though. Germany did lose at home to North Macedonia, but that doesn't mean they'll succumb to Hungary in Munich. One match is too anecdotal. The Germans' home record was respectable prior to that disaster, with wins against Iceland and a strong Ukrainian side. Their draws against Spain and especially Switzerland might seem poor at first glance, but they're both better than Hungary, and thus indicates that a German win against the Hungarians is probable. Here are the best third place teams based on my predictions. The 4 best advance to the knockout phase. Speaking of which, now on to my knockout phase predictions. Oh boy. Yes, I know you probably see some results that trigger you and make you want to leave an angry comment, but just wait until you hear my explanations for everything before you do anything of that nature. Yeah, I'm just gonna start read top to bottom, starting with the round of 16. Alright, Belgium, Poland, 3-1 Belgium. Nothing controversial there in my opinion. Belgium, one of the best teams in the world. Poland, a respectable side, but still the underdog against Belgium. Now, Italy and Ukraine, this is very tough because Ukraine are very strong actually. But I can see Italy getting one of their trademark narrow wins with like a super late equalizer and just narrowly squeaking past Ukraine, which is not supposed to be insulting towards Italy, because I think Italy are very good as well. It's more of a compliment for Ukraine. France, Switzerland, a respectable 1-0 win for France. Nothing disastrous for Switzerland. Switzerland are a decent side, but France is a bit better. Scotland and Sweden in Copenhagen, that's worth pointing out. because I think Sweden will have slightly better support from the stands. Because I want to say that Danes, I mean, yeah, Swedes and Danes, we hate each other, but we also want the teams, well, we also want our opposing teams to advance far enough so that we can be the one to knock each other out. I think Scotland is decent, but Sweden are a bit better. But one thing that I am terrified about and can definitely see happening is that this game will be 1-1 and that Scotland will win the penalty shootout after shithousing their way to a draw in under 90 minutes. But for now, my prediction is that Sweden will win. Spain, Austria, 3-0 Spain is what I'm going to go with. Austria is kind of in shambles, but still fortunate to advance because their group is quite easy. I mean, they lost 4-0 to Denmark, and Spain beat Germany 6-0 and Ukraine 4-0, so they definitely have that demolition potential. And this next match was really tough, England against Portugal in London. When it was to be played in Dublin, I had a Portuguese win in under 90 minutes, like 1-0, but then it was moved to London, which complicated things from a prediction point of view, because it gave England a bit of an edge. But I think this Portuguese side is so good that they're gonna win after extra time. England's home record isn't perfect. They did beat Belgium in the Nations League, which was really solid, but they also lost to Denmark. To be fair, they were robbed. Like that, Denmark should not have had that penalty, but that game would likely finish 0-0 regardless. And Portugal is better than Denmark. I have to give Portugal a slight edge against England. I mean, England really, they're a victim of the bracketology, because I mean, it's a shame that two of the top 5 best teams in the world face each other in the round of 16 of the Euros. I mean, it's clear that there's something wrong in that case. And then we have another interesting tie in Netherlands and Germany, two traditional powerhouses that have been struggling a lot recently. If Koeman was still in charge, I would give Holland an edge. But thankfully for Germany, De Boer is now in charge of Holland. But it's still, I mean, completely even, basically. But I gave Germany a slight edge due to their, they have slightly more experience. I mean, keep in mind that Holland has not played at the Euros, at a major tournament since the 2014 World Cup. And also Germany, I mean, they're the king of penalties as well. So I think they will just squeak by, just narrowly. And then this game was probably the toughest of all to predict. Turkey versus Denmark. It's a real shame to see Turkey go out so early. They're also very much a dark horse for the tournament. And I do believe that if Turkey beats Denmark, I think they will go to the semifinals, because the quarterfinal against Germany or Holland would be played in Baku, which would basically be like having home advantage for Turkey. But I am going to give it Denmark a slight edge over Turkey because of their slightly higher consistency and more experience. Just the most narrow of margins. I mean, as you can see, it's a penalty shootout. All right, on to the quarterfinals. I have Belgium versus Italy. It's worth noting that Belgium struggled a lot with Italy at the European Championship. But I am going to give Belgium a slight edge over Italy because I simply think they are a bit better. But it's going to be hard, and it can very well go to extra time, which is I think will happen, even though a win in under 90 minutes is also possible, of course. Here's the end of the line for Sweden. I am a bit biased, but I'm not so biased that I think we're going to beat France. Yeah, 2-1 France. Spain, Portugal, quite a difficult game to predict, but I think Portugal have proven a bit more, even though Spain is also quite good. But Portugal are more experienced, and their squad is a little better, I have to say. So hard-earned 1-0 victory for Portugal. All right, and now this is probably what you have been staring at for a while and thinking that I'm crazy or something, maybe. But I think Denmark will beat Germany. And I would have made this prediction even if Germany wouldn't have lost to North Macedonia, because I truly think that Denmark, I mean, they're so good. I hate to admit it, but Denmark they're certainly the best out of the Nordic countries, but honestly one of the best teams in Europe right now. They have many great players, and they have an excellent manager. They're experienced, disciplined. They have individual talismanic players, but they also play as a cohesive unit. So I honestly think that Germany will lose to them, and I would not even consider this an upset. All right, semifinals. This was really, really hard. Belgium against France, a repeat of the 2018 World Cup semifinal. Belgium has arguably gotten weaker since that, but you should not overestimate the impact of individual players performing a bit worse, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport, and it's very common for players who declines at club level to still maintain their prowess for the national team. So I don't want to put weight on Hazard being out of form for Real Madrid, for example. Yeah, the 2018 semi-final was an end-to-end game that could have gone either way, really. In the end, France scraped by. I hate using this type of sort of Hollywood-style argumentation, but I think that Belgium will get their revenge rematch and reach the final. That alone would of course not be enough. I mean, the sort of revenge factor and motivation is of course not enough to beat France, like alone, but I mean, you have to look at their players as well. You can see that they clearly have the tools to do it, and I think it's going to happen. Yeah, sadly, we will not see a repeat of the 2016 final, even though I'm sure France would be eager to get revenge on Portugal. Speaking of which, I think Portugal will beat Denmark narrowly in the semifinals. A respectable 1-0 victory. Might seem boring, but it is the most common scoreline, so it's reasonable. Yeah, 1-0 Portugal. Denmark is good, but Portugal is at the very least like top 3-4 teams in the world, in my opinion. Yeah, in the final, I think Belgium will win 1-0 after extra time. That seems like the most common scoreline in finals at international tournaments, and I'm just gonna go with it, with Belgium. Portugal can win. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're basically indistinguishable, so I mean, it's mostly just my gut feeling at this point. So there you have it. I think Belgium will win the Euros. Thanks for watching. Please tell me your predictions in the comment section. And remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video.